My name is Chris Gisslen. I am the K12 Director of Business Development for ASSA ABLOY. We are the global leaders for manufacturing doors, frames, and hardware, and then some access control pieces. I've been in this space for 17 years, and I'm very fortunate that Chris had asked me to be a part of this, and then along with these heavy hitters up here. Literally heavy hitters,
Yeah.
right? So,
and we know the stage is strong.
yeah, right. We put them to the test. Yeah. So this is going to be a conversation with us up here, but I absolutely welcome. We're in a smaller room, so if there's an opportunity for someone in this room to share, we would love to hear if you feel that it's valuable information for the team. But I will cut you off if it goes sideways. So very fortunate. Right away to my left is Alex. I'll let him share who he is and what's going on.
So I'm Alex Belanger, or also William, if you look at, depending on which tag you're looking at today. But anyway, I'm really excited to be here, and thank you again for the veterans that are here and your sacrifice. It's just remarkable, the country we get to live in. I'm the Chief Executive over Operations for Fresno Unified School District. Basically, we have about 8 million square feet of real estate. Of that, we have about 2,000 classrooms, and so we have about anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 doors, and so that's pretty exciting for
we
what
love
we're
it.
talking about,
Yeah.
right? And a lot more windows. But in addition to that, we're just currently looks like we're going to pass a $500 million bond. We have about $2.5 billion need, and we are located in the Central Valley of California, right, kind of the entrance of Yosemite National Park. So we're in a good spot. However, just like everyone here, our buildings are range from 100 years old. Our average buildings are between 100 years old and 65 years old. We have a couple that are newer. However, even the new ones need to have a better plan. A lot of those, as we see the industry change, we know that door hardware, automatic actuated door hardware, how we even approach safety and security is different. And so it's a continually evolving environment.
All right. My name is Rachad Wilson. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Brevard County Public Schools in Florida. We are located probably about 35 miles east of Orlando for context. I've been in this role now for 3 years, and we're a school district, 112 buildings, 87 or 88 of those buildings are schools. We're probably about 70,000-ish students. I too would like to thank our veterans on what you have done in servicing our country to provide the wonderful lifestyle that we're able to have today because of your services.
My name is Matt Wark. I'm the Chief Facilities Officer for Forsyth County Schools in the great state of Georgia. We have 55,000 students. We have 42 schools, 52 total buildings. We are the fastest growing county in the state of Georgia. Between 2010 and 2020, we were the sixth fastest growing county in the entire United States. And we are still growing on an average of 1,200 to 1,400 kids a year.
Wow, that's
So we are in a very unique challenge to where that growth is great, but at the same time, it's something we have to control. I was excited to be part of this panel. It's very sad, though, that we have to be part of this panel because about 40 minutes exactly east, 3 counties away, we had a school shooting. You all saw that on the news within minutes. So we had to deal with that immediately the very same day, lock down schools, things of that nature. So again, it's great to come and talk to everyone. First things first is whatever we talk about, it's not the one golden silver thing that's going to fix everything. Just maybe it's a few ideas that what we do in our schools, maybe you can find one that works for you. Because if it was the one golden ticket, everyone would do it and every government would fund it. So again, thank you for having me. Thank you to the veterans as well. My dad is a proud Marine Corps, so thank you again for all your service.
So, and everybody's thanking, I'll thank you guys because what we're doing every day is meaningful and it's impactful. So I appreciate that as well. So we got our thank yous out of the way now so we can dig into it. I'm going to start, Alex, down with you here. When we talk to what type of approaches are you taking? Like, right, as far as when it comes to school security, what type of approaches are you taking at your district that might be helpful for some of the folks here?
So I think a big part of that is just understanding that everybody has an opinion, right? and everybody's opinion to their mind is the best. And so I think the biggest part is with our district is getting to a point of what does safety and security mean to us? Is it individuals? Is it door hardware? Is it extra fencing? Is it single point of entry, which really doesn't exist because everybody knows if you're out of school, they leave every gate open, no matter how much you try. And then how impenetrable is a chain link fence, right? So it's not like that's going to stop or deflect any kind of bullet. So it comes down to how inviting you are. How are you embracing? How are you working with students? How are you working with social emotional support? How are you engaging your community? Fresno's unique. It's an amazing place. We call instead of Fresno, we say Fres Yes because we're excited to be there. But Fresno also has some of the challenges. Is we have multiple gangs that call Fresno their home. And so in the Central Valley of California, then we have the North and South. And so what ends up happening is a lot of things happen in Fresno. A lot of them, and so lockdowns are regular occurrence. It's something kind of like earthquakes in California, everybody's used to it. But as the schools, and how do we keep people feel safe in schools? How do we attract and retain quality teachers? A big part of that is how they feel. Mm-hmm. And so it's basically, and everybody wants to know, what is our plan? Every school has a different plan. The more, and what we've learned, the more you militarize, say, a space and create vestibules and things of that nature, the more two things happen. One, the students that orientate to that differently feel that it's more institutionalized and it's not as welcoming. Second thing has a massive effect on students. And so one of the approaches we're taking is using our buildings more as a perimeter fence, especially in new structures, and doing it in a way so it's a passive barrier, or is very real barrier, but it doesn't have a fence that's in your face. And so our buildings become the fence. And then we focus our internal areas for support for our classroom or for our quads and things of that nature. On older buildings, especially one of the challenges in California is our schools were built post-war. During post-war, all of our offices and everything else are in the center of the campus. Everything's on finger plans. It's a completely open campus. So as we've had issues or different challenges, perimeter fences have gone up, but they still don't fix the problem. Is what happens when a parent comes to a school? How do they gain access, and how do you manage that? Well, the office is in the center, that becomes a problem. So the first thing is take that office space, put it out to the leading edge. Somewhere like other spaces that are used by communities, like libraries and multi-purpose buildings, cafeterias and gymnasiums. Push those out to your perimeter areas so that becomes more of that public access and limit the interior access. The next thing is we open up more access, more availability to our industry partners, which are not even industry, but our major partner was the city of Fresno, and had them start utilizing our pools, using our green space, which gave another layer of site management, which is basically what this becomes. That being said, there's a faction within our district that wants more fences than just one channelized way to get to a school. That's just not reasonable. So it becomes access, it becomes a combination of things. So in this case, we're looking at fencing, doors, access, creating doors that is intuitive design that allows people just to walk through instead of like, where's the office? How do we get into the campus? Another way is creating as spaces within that vestibule or that receiving space within that office space. How do you create that in a way that doesn't feel like you're at a bank with bulletproof glass, but in a way that still makes both the employee and the parent just visiting the site still feel comfortable, and then an easy way to get them on and off the campus.
So when we talk about employing or moving forward with those plans, I know, Rachad, you guys kind of got something pushed on you here down in Florida. Florida had passed HB 1473, which is a state mandate that you now get to deal with. So how are you taking an approach for any mandates that have come, and how you're going to adapt to that security measure?
We're just rolling with the punches. The state of Florida has been very aggressive in our safety measures for our schools, so much so that they've put it into legislation. And it merely states that all doors to instructional spaces must be locked. Mm-hmm. All gates, ingress, egress must be closed and locked. We also, the bill states that we must identify hard corners within the classroom in the event a shooter gets inside. The students would know where that hard corner is located. It's very involved. I can go on and on and on about the bill. We also have the state Office of Safe Schools is a department now within the state, and they go to each school and they do unannounced security checks. And each district has also hired a team of personnel to assist within the district, which is called the school safety specialist. And his or her job is to go around to the schools unannounced to check for compliance. It's been a huge addition to make sure, because sometimes we get comfortable, right? That teacher want to run to the restroom real quick and prop his or her door open real quick, but that's a no-no. Now there's an accountability piece that's tied to 1473, and that can be you can write the teacher up or whoever up. Now the principal will be held accountable from the state level. The superintendent is also held accountable now for these such things. So very aggressive approach, but warranted, needed. We've retrofitted all our doors to have storefront locks, so when they close, they automatically lock from the outside. But the human element, right? The human element will always be the human element, regardless of what you put in place. So that's what we're struggling with now, is trying to combat the human element. Mm-hmm. But overall, as a district, we're in a pretty good, solid spot.
I love it. Matt, I was going to ask you, like, how, with unfortunate your situation just down the road, what type of security measures did you guys have to implement?
Well, the good thing is in Forsyth County, we pride ourselves about being ahead of the game. We do safety audits every other year. Every single campus gets a safety audit, a walkthrough from our law enforcement as well as emergency services and internal school people with facilities next to them, because a lot of times we'll go walk buildings and people say, well, I want to close this off. Well, the fire marshal's not going to let you close those areas off. So it's a great partnership that we have, but these safety audits have really helped us wake up to, hey, these are things that we can implement at a lower price. Here's things we already have in place. The good news is that we have a ton of cameras already. We have the best relationship with our local law enforcement. We have a resource officer in every single one of our schools and 2 in every high school. And we've had that now for the last 3 years. So again, tragedies that come up, you always start to look at those types of things that you have. But going back to Rachad said, you're only as good as your worst staff member. What we've had to do is talk to our maintenance staff. We've had to talk to our school nutritionists, our coaches who love to show up for weight training and just prop a door open. Things of that nature have really become a focus in our district, to where now our maintenance guys will take a picture of a propped open door, send it to the principal in an email, CCing me and our deputy superintendent, because it's time to be accountable for what you do. And I always tell my maintenance guys as well, don't be that guy because you're on camera that you're walking past that open door and you didn't close it. So again, that's the mindset we've been in. Our state, along with Florida, has been pretty aggressive, not as aggressive as that, but what they've done is given us allocated funds that used to be optional every year. It was in a form of a grant, but now the legislators come back and approve this year that it's guaranteed safety money to every district in the state of Georgia. And they've taken the handcuffs off of us to where now we can pay for staffing. So all of our resource officers for many years had to be paid by local funds. And we've always said that in the state of Georgia, is saying, listen, if you want us to have resource officers, but you're making us pay for it. So those are the battles we've always had. So we're very grateful of our legislators to start giving us that flexibility, because every school district in Georgia is very different. Mm-hmm. And every school in Forsyth County is different. No campus is the same. So we need to be able to use those type of funds. And we've done secure vestibules. We did that 5 years ago. Every one of our schools has a double buzzed entry. You can't even get in without getting on a camera. We've done a lot of campus closures to make sure that we only try to have that one point of entry. Our high schools, as everyone here who has high schools, are disasters. They never close. The big push that we've had was metal detectors. Everyone is called from that incident down the road from us. Everyone wanted metal detectors. And what I would stress to you is just be very cautious and strategic about what you choose to do and put in your schools. From a previous district that I was in, I put metal detectors in all my schools, my high school and middle schools. We had a very large gang issue. We had a lot of guns. I had 4 guns in 3 months. And one was a 3rd grade child shooting it off in a classroom. So there are times where certain things are warranted, but know your community, know what, it's easy to say we want metal detectors, but then telling the parents, well, you got to walk through it too.
Mhm.
When it becomes a inconvenience, that's when you're susceptible to issues. So again, we're very fortunate for Forsyth, but those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Well, and I know there's that balance, right, between security and convenience, and everybody in this room has to deal with that battle. And it's kind of one of those things where, as a group, you'll have a champion or a couple of champions within your district to just say, what's our path? Are we going to go through the security path? Are we going to go down the convenience path? But I was really interested with the double buzz thing, and I was gonna ask Alex, like, with the different technologies, like how are you integrating those into your district?
So we're, as far as the test case, I think we're on the entry level of that. So we're currently talking to different programs to look at, there's passive management, right? Which is the AI utilizing and doing profiling, things of that nature, which scares most school districts. So however, that is a conversation that's out there and where we're headed. The next one is, I think quite frankly, that's where the industry is gonna be heading actually. And so I was really, one of the big parts of coming to this conference is also learning where everybody's headed and taking that type of technology. We are still on the point of how do we affect both human behavior, but also how do we do passive management? Because you can have the world's best cameras, however, that's just going to tell you what happened. And so there's, how do we utilize those same cameras and go to systems now that can actually help us, profile what's happening or potentially give you a heads up. The next thing is those cameras are only good as because we have people watching them as well. And what ends up, but there's only 4 people, so they can't see, 4,000 cameras. And so that's really what we're, when we talked about it early on, I was really excited about kind of your programs, where your hardware programs. I don't know if you could really talk about some of that as far as kind of where you're headed. We're seeing that kind of hardware is headed.
So not a commercial. This is a platform that our competitors have as well, but it's just one of those when we look to integration and how all of these pieces are tying together. So we're looking at like a unified life safety system to where it's going to be, if there's a mass notification that goes out, it sends out the text messages, but within that security system, it will lock down schools. It will send into a different Wi-Fi, like it's a separate SSID or whatever. There's all those different protocols that are in place. We're just one Lego in the piece of that puzzle. So the cameras, like if somebody were to press an internal button that were to lock down that classroom, does it lock down the entire hallway? Does it lock down the entire school? Does it activate cameras? So it's those technology pieces that we try to put together and just making sure that it's a unified system. So it's not proprietary to where it's only one person's camera. It's only one person, because if you fall in love with a vendor or a dealer, man, I really don't like what that Chris guy was saying, I'm gonna go with his competitor. Well, at least it's an open platform, so now we can do that. I do wanna ask Rachad, like, what type of culture are you presenting to your teams, to where what can we do or what can they do, or maybe some folks in the audience here can pull from what you guys are doing as far as culture and consistency throughout your school districts?
That's a great question. You have to create a mindset about safety and security, because again, everybody some has the mindset, oh, this won't happen to us. I had the pleasure of meeting with the father of a student who got killed from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas back February 14th, about 6 or 7 years ago, down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He spoke to our leadership team, and he talked about how when he woke up that morning, he did not even think about that would be the last time he would see his daughter. So what we've done as a district, we're very communicative in how we communicate about safety and security. Safety and security is not just the job of district security. It's the job of every individual that is on that campus, from the students to custodians, cab staff, front office clerks, everybody. And we preach that, we rep that. And right now we're in the process of adding weapons detection systems in our high schools. And we're doing it one by one because we want to make sure that we do it the correct way. I know there's been some school districts that tried to do it holistically and it failed. And I'm a firm believer you learn from other people's mistake. So we're very systematic. The communication piece is huge. We have our schools creating videos, send out communications from the district level, school level, have meetings with parents, the community stakeholders. We do training videos. We invite the community to come in because we don't want this to be looked at as a negative. This is a positive. This is another layer of security that we're adding. We have the SROs that was mentioned earlier. I mean, we have them to the point where they're walking around with guns on their chest. I mean, we're very serious about school security. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go back to my original comment earlier. We're only as good as the weakest link, that human element. Everybody has to be on the same page. And that's the most important piece. We have the 5,000 cameras, but again, we don't have eyes on 5,000 cameras. We have 2 analysts that's in our district securities office that's ran by our sheriff's department. They're responsible for looking at every camera that we have throughout the district. Now, they have the capability from that office to lock that campus totally down in the event of a situation. But again, it's a holistic approach, is the culture, the holistic approach.
I like the holistic part, and what kind of resonates with me, and I really want to ask Matt about this, just is like, what are the community expectations now? What's their engagement, and what are the expectations that they're putting on you that, if anybody in the room, they could maybe learn from some of the stuff that you've had to go through, just unfortunately recently, but that, we can share with them.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just be transparent. The first thing that came out of the shooting in the neighboring community is, well, they didn't really know what we did. And it made us go back and get in front of our board members and community forums and things of that nature. And a lot of the things that came at us from community members was like, we had no idea we were doing that. They really have never thought about it until it happens in a community near you, and everyone in our county seemed like they knew somebody in that area. Then once we laid out our plan of what we do, we don't have keys anymore. Everything we run in our school district is all a badge access. There's only one key on the entire building, and it's the very front door, and no one has it. There's only 2 in the whole entire county, and they're both in lock boxes. We've done tags on our doors to where emergency services, when they show up to a campus, they have no idea where those badges are. We can unlock those doors remotely for them, and they can access that. So they know if they see a sticker, they know that's a door I can get into. That's cheap. It's a sticker that we put on a door. That it's a reflective tape. The other thing is now we've put signs up on all of our exit or our outside hallways. Says Hall 1500. Because now, same thing. If a resource officer shows up and there's a shooting in a report of hallway 1500, they have no idea where that is. So now when they pull up to a campus, that saves time. The remote access for all of our doors, we can see every door that's propped open or not. Those are the things that we're really pushing and we've had for many years. But the community piece is just be transparent about what you have and what you do. We thought that was the biggest eye opener, that they didn't realize that we had these type of things that were going on all the time. So they started with the extreme, but once you lay out what you do, they kind of pull back from that extreme because it comes down to trust. The community trusts that their kids are safe every day when they get on that bus. I have 4 in our school system, and I trust the same thing. Every time I put them on the bus, it's sad that you think, okay, see you later. You know what I mean? And that's a very somber statement now that people have to make. But it's important that that's what your community wants. And if you lay out everything that you're doing, our community has been very gracious to us, and they realize that there's not just that golden ticket. This is what works, But when you lay that out there and you're transparent to them, that's what they expect, that you're at least putting the effort in.
And I think it brings back to that safety versus convenience argument, to where hopefully safety wins, right? And that's kind of always been the goal. And if we're transparent, it's like, these are the reasons why we're taking these steps. These are the reasons why we're asking for these bond dollars, or these are why we're proposing for these grants. These are the reasons why we're hoping you vote our way on whatever day it is that you guys are voting. If we're open and honest about those conversations, then I think it's something that we can really, it'll help facilitate those conversations and hopefully lead to action, which is kind of the big thing. This one's kind of off the cuff here for you, but I hate to do it to you, Alex, but when you talk about like just the security, like what's the destination? Like is there, like is it a continuous thing? Is it something that we're going to work to this point? And then how do you approach that with your teams?
So I'd like to say that's a really easy answer, but it's not, right? Because
Right.
it's something that continually evolves. Obviously, if you work with a school district that has a board, the board has opinions also, and each one has an expert. So that throws a wrinkle to it too. Yeah.
Just one.
Well,
Just one.
yeah, just one.
Hopefully you guys are.
Yeah, you're all here. So I think probably the most important part is also understanding that the other half of safety and security is mental health.
Mhm.
And having that opportunity, understanding where mental health goes, and making sure that it's not in the office because it feels like that's where they go in the principal's office. So it's not a punishment. Making sure that you're looking strategic design so that it's intuitive. One of the hardest things is looking at existing design. And some people in here have some schools that are like John Shea's here. He's got he built his first school 200 years ago, so it's pretty old. So how do you retrofit existing structures? And then the next thing is, how do you classify a space? And how do you not scare someone when you classify a space is, we gave it a 1, 2, 3, 4 ranking. And so then all of a sudden schools, well, am I a 1? Am I a 4? And so being careful as you go through that audit process, making sure you don't create undue fear. The other piece to that, which we also have, which ties into it, is safe access to schools. And what is that student experience getting to the school? How do they, once they get there, how are they greeted and embraced? We also have, SROs, and we also have campus safety people, but their first interactions are great, but how do you create that space to bring them on? The next piece, what does that office look like?
Mhm.
What is our base design for an office space, making sure you have design guides. I think that was one of the biggest things, so we could use things strategically. Some that it helps us push back because every principal has an opinion, no offense, but every principal has an opinion how their space should be used. And so having a design guide, again, everybody agree, get on the same page. That way when you go out strategically and that's a passive management, whether it's in specifications with door hardware, specifications for type of door, size of door, location, how much is it a passive barrier? Is it a definite barrier? When it comes to inside doors, automatic actuated door hardware, buzz buttons, things that and then you also look at what's the maintenance side of this? Where are the fail points? How do I plan against that? Because then how do I get those? So if this widget's created somewhere off our shore, how do I make sure that I can have access to that, say if this fails?
Mhm.
And then if it does fail, which is, card lock Stukes, because that's been around for a long time with hotels and things of that nature. So there's failures with that. So how do you bridge that? And there's also things you can get around them with, right? So how do you create a system that supports that as well? And then we talked, a lot of it, comes down to culture and what's the overall integration. So I'm not giving you a direct answer because the answer evolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's customized, right?
Yeah.
I know, John's dealing with different issues than what Rachad's dealing with
Right.
because his structures go up and yours
Correct.
go out. And then San Diego, it's open air culture to where it's like, all right, the campus, we have our security fencing, but then the classes are like, they're motels instead of hotels, like, right? The classroom doors open up to the exterior or to the elements, and there's different applications that have to come through there. With that and the different, everybody knows that you've been to one school. Rachad, what do you guys have to do for, like, if it was a customized? Is it a one per? It falls on you. Is there a committee that you deal with that helps make those decisions?
We have a team. We collaborate. We do a really good job with collaboration, and we have everybody from the principal, because every time the principal changes, everything else changes.
Right.
On a campus. So we do a really good job. My district security team. We meet with the facilities team. We meet with the academic side of the house, and we just have constant conversations. And we meet monthly and talk. We pick certain schools out, and we have conversations. The issue is, we're trying to retrofit, and Alex spoke about it. We're trying to retrofit a 1950 school to today's, requirements, and that's difficult. I mean, you're talking about money. That's difficult. Trying to single point entry, hardening front offices. The one thing that we have that's been very helpful from the security side is mapping. The state of Florida has mapping grants, and that allows law enforcement to have it on their phone so they can see if there's an issue in this building 6, classroom 617. They know exactly how to get there without hesitation.
Mhm.
That's been huge. But it's different. Every day it's a new challenge. I mean, once you think you solve one problem, 2 or 3 more pop up on the same site. So it's definitely a shell game, but one that we take on head on and look forward to correcting those ills.
So I'd like to speak real quick to that point. When it comes to IT and technology, and you have different principles, one of the most important thing is you're looking at that is making sure that your room numbering and room schedules remain the same. And a lot of times principals come to a new campus and they don't understand why is a big deal. I like this to be 1, 2, 3, and it's not, right? And so, but your key plans are tied to your EMS plans, which are tied to your security plans, which are also tied to your room schedules. And so a lot of people don't really understand why you can't change it. And if you do, a lot of times it's anywhere between $60,000 to $80,000 just to create an overall schedule, new scheduling plan. A lot of people don't understand that. And the impact of that, when we talk about when the officer shows, you hit that button, and we did this at Anchorage School District. So when you hit that duress button and everybody shows up, where are they showing up to? And the next thing, is there any kind of air support? Is there a number on top of the building so they can understand that too, so they can strategically bring them in? And then now, especially with the deployment of drones and things, that helps them be more strategic. But the training of your police departments is also key, and how they're accessing your campuses. The only benefit to having a fence is closed, it creates that passive delineation of whether it's going to be an intruder or whether it's going to be the police department, a fire department, whatever, how they're going to get strategically to that point. And so having those plans in place are key. One of the things we've noticed is a lot of times is schools try to make changes, and they'll make changes so that it's more convenient for them, especially letting kids out or bringing kids in. Those are kind of those areas that just get left open. And so having a plan for that, I think, is probably the human element is one of our greatest concerns. And I like the idea of having, the other one is we live in Fresno, and teachers have learned that if they pop their door open when it's really hot, they can create more AC into their space, because we have energy management, but there's a way to get around it. But making a thermostat think that it's a lot harder. So there's different things that creates a problem when we have, but I like the idea of that if we have an open door, that I'm just, I'm gonna look for something to tell me about that. That helped me manage our EMS a lot better.
And we also, too, if I may add, we also have great relationships with our municipalities, and all their training is done on our campus.
That's huge.
And they train all the time, so they're very familiar with our campuses, and that has been huge when we do training. And we had something happen recently. It wasn't to this degree from a school shooting standpoint, but there was a loaded gun on campus. And with those measures in place, we were able to narrow down the focus, go in and get the students with the gun, and before it became an issue. So just those little tweaks.
So, and we're running kind of low here, and I would like to open it up for questions here in a little bit. But Matt, if there was one lesson learned recently, or just through your time, what would be one lesson that you'd like to share with the room that you feel they would potentially be able to have a good key takeaway from you?
Just get everyone to buy into your plan and buy into what you have, because like I said, we have panic buttons. We have all those things that money can buy. If your staff doesn't believe what you're doing is right, they're not going to be safe, and your kids aren't going to feel safe either. So I would say the one thing that we take back is to make sure, also with a growing school system, we add teachers all the time. We add 200-300 teachers every single year because we're opening new schools. They don't know what's already in place, because what do you teach new teachers? Here's where your smart board is. Here how you teach reading. Here how you do math. But they don't know all these safety measures, and they're the ones setting off your alarms all the time because they don't know their badge number. So again, that's the biggest takeaway is get your staff fully to buy into what your school's doing. Make sure they have voice and input into that, because they're the ones on the front lines. I can create a great plan, but they're the ones in the hallways. They're the ones that are dealing with the students. They're the ones that are going to be the first ones to see that child with a gun in the hallway. And that's how 2 of the staff members were killed in that shooting. They came out because they thought it was a kid banging on the locker. He was isolated in the hallway, but he shot the staff members. They came out of their rooms. So again, it's such a tragedy, but those are the things that we learn is get your staff to know what your procedures are, and that's what I would tell you is the biggest takeaway is get that buy-in, and you'll be a lot safer.
Alex, if you had one lesson that you've learned
I think it's probably the biggest one, because we're on the growing side of this, is getting everybody on the same page and getting everybody to agree with that. So we started with design guides and planning because we had to get everybody to narrow it down. Otherwise, the focus is too great. And so it comes down to door hardware, it comes down to windows, it comes down to access, intuitive design, and then growing out from there. Otherwise, what you end up doing is everybody has a one-off that, so you guys benefited from the state saying, this is how we're gonna do it. And so we're on the growing side of that.
Rachad, one lesson learned?
Pretty much what these guys said, but I will add, you can never substitute safety for convenience.
True.
Can't. And that's what we deal with, the apathy aspect of it. You can't. You cannot substitute safety for convenience.
Yeah, I know Chris has a mic. I think we have voices that'll probably carry if you've been in the school space. So I did see a hand up over here, but if you, yeah.
Let me get this guy first and then I'll go over to you. Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
So I appreciate the conversation. I heard human element, which, that's a big factor. I've heard metal detectors, which is always a topic of conversation. I've heard cameras, but then not enough human element. And then there's this new push about AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is a little bit feedback on what are your thoughts about metal detectors? Because it takes a human element to monitor, and then we're asking teachers to teach, but now we're asking them to be security guards, and we're saying, well, okay, if it goes off, what are you going to do to check them, right? So is anybody using any modern technology, artificial intelligence for monitoring or to take the human element out for security measures?
We're not using any AI at this point, but I do have experience. In one school district I was in, we put metal detectors in. In the current school system, we are not. It's based on the community and what we really feel is going to benefit our school. I will tell you that it's very difficult to put metal detectors in and manage it. However, I will tell you the worst thing ever, and you couldn't plan it any better. Our first day of metal detectors in this other county that I was in was the same day as the Parkland shooting. No one said a word about our metal detectors, and they never did, because they automatically said, ooh, this is something. But other communities, we would not do that. It's just, we don't see that benefit. In this other school district, we didn't have the push buttons. We didn't have the secure vestibules. We had all. Here now, I really believe, and I worry about that AI piece of it, because the human element is still very powerful too, to have someone watching cameras and putting things in. Right now, that's our best bet, is finding what we can afford to. And every district is different. I don't ever want to say, because our funding source may be a lot more than some, South Georgia, there's just the money is not there. But find things that do have a major impact that you can afford.
There's a question down here.
Yes, I love the idea of safety teams doing audits. And every time there's an incident somewhere in the nation, we find media requests for open records. So when you're auditing those schools and you're creating a digital record of those things, do you take is there anything you can do so that it doesn't appear like you're throwing a principal, a school, or someone else under the bus when they're coming in and looking at those digital audits of the things that you're doing?
Yes. The audits that we do, it's more of just walkthroughs, and we have touch points that we say, here's the things that we have in place, and it's more of going and verifying of what it is. It's not a go out and find things that are wrong. So let me be very clear about what our audits are. So in an open records request, we say, all the doors have a magnetic strip that you can pull out and put in? The answer is yes or no. You know what I mean? There's small things that where if we have an open records, it's, hey, there might be one item in this school that we need to make sure that we're verifying. So our audits are more of a verification. And if there's something there that, hey, this is a issue that we need to address, that's an internal conversation.
Question here.
Yeah, I was just wondering if any of your school districts have implemented a crisis alert system platform where all staff wear a badge and they have a push button option to lock down a whole school just by that one staff member.
Yes. We have what is the RAVE system. It's not the Centegix, which is the new latest and greatest, and I've been meeting with those reps to try to transfer. But right now, currently, we're using the RAVE system, and it's a mobile app on your phone. You hit it, and it informs everybody, even from out to the municipalities. And it's quite effective, but of course, it's on your phone. You know, we much rather have where you can press it on your badge ID. So we're in conversations with that vendor as we speak, actually.
We're going through multiple vendors to look at adding something of that nature. We're also looking at not just a badge button. We're also looking at another company that does more of a microphone that's in our intercoms to try to help in other ways instead of just saying, we're going to buy badges. You know what I mean? Let's find a way, if we're going to invest that kind of money, let's invest in multiple uses. Instead of quick fixes, let's look at something that, hey, our teachers can utilize this as well in the classroom daily. So we're looking at a few other options.
And I think I'll just put on top of that would be if the technology is there and how it's like, if there's something else that can be added on. So we're putting those Lego pieces together,
Right.
whether it's just, if it's a duress, but it's now this duress system falls underneath a mapping. So if somebody does put a duress, the first responders can look at their phone and say that duress came from Classroom 101.
Yep.
And because it was connected to this software, I deal with locks. So we were able to tie in some locks or whatever it would be to where it's one piece on top of another piece that are all communicating. So you get that unified life safety system. So please reach out to your counterparts in the room to say, or the county next door, have you guys implemented this? What are you guys doing? Do you have a partner that you're working with, or do you have a champion within your group or your system or the state or whatever it would be? Who's the resource that you have? And then hopefully we'll learn together. There's a question over here. Yeah.
Yeah. First, on the question on audits that someone had, so we've been able to consider our audits privileged. And so for any CORAs, we say it's protected because it would open up vulnerabilities within our schools. So we do not have to release the information. But I had a question for the panel and or the audience. You mentioned safe access to schools. I think there's an open vulnerability and a risk, like for when the child gets on the bus. So we too had a school shooting in 2023 inside the building. And but we have children that are on safety plans, meaning they may have a weapon charge or other type of charges, yet we have to allow them into schools. But you're getting on the bus, you may be checked and they're patted down once they get inside the building. But you have kids on a bus where a child may have a gun or something else. So are there any solutions that others have implemented regarding that safe route to school?
So there's solutions. We haven't implemented, but there is some great AI solutions for that. Also, I know as a district, our district's averse to buttons, to metal detectors, things of that nature. And so so we've had to look at different ways. And also our safety and security lives in two different departments. One is the implementation and one is the management. And then then there's a facility side that has, and so when you start stacking, like doing the Legos, we have a little bit greater challenge. Our safe access to school is we're going to have high-speed rail, we have railroad, we have canals, and then we also have students trying to, be able to, our high schools walk 2 miles, our elementary could walk a mile to school, and so they're trying to go through that. We have, gang territories and things of that nature that are very, very dangerous that our students try to maneuver through. So that's kind of our approach to safe access and how we make that better. We also have, we've also worked with the city in putting in Shot Spotter, which also helps us identify where the shots come from. That was very effective for us. So it helps us when there's an active shooter next to our school or within that community. It'll help us identify where the threat's coming from.
One of the things that we've implemented the badge system in our districts and teaching. And the one thing that we're finding out, and we talk about the outside perimeter and everything else that's going on. One of the things that we're seeing is that badge, though, is a huge security thing within the classroom because, even though you're going to push it for an intruder or whatever, we're finding out, like so far, I think we have 93,000 pushes, something like that, for teachers looking for help, whether a student is out of control or anything else. That's where part of the security is too. It's not just a perimeter. It's really about what's happening, or you have a runner, you have a special ed kid, any of those things. That's part of the whole safety picture too. That's not just that perimeter whole aspect. So I think that's the other piece that we've looked at is how do we keep teachers safe in their own classroom when they're trying to do and not have disruption in the classroom.
That's awesome. So thank you to our guys up here, the best, I mean, the best looking, the heavy, what, as far as facilities for 'em.
Defensive line.
Yeah, the defensive line here, that's amazing. We should have opened with that. But these guys don't know, but we'll stick around here if anybody has any questions that we weren't able to get to here, but we want to be mindful of your time and the rest of the afternoon here. So really appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you. Chris, thanks
Let's
for
hear
the
for it.
opportunity.
Let's hear it for our
And,
panel.
have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. That was super informative, I think, and great questions too.